Greetings, metalheads, and welcome to No Nonsense Metal Reviews. I'm George, and today I'm back with another collection update for you, taking you through and showing off some of my latest purchases and additions to the ever-growing collection. A few gaps that have been in my catalogue, in my collection for a while that I've finally filled, and also just a few sort of wild cards thrown in there as well for good measure. So we'll kick off with arguably one of the most niggling, annoying and frustrating gaps in my collection, certainly in my death metal collection for a long time, is this rather interesting release. This is the second full-length album from the mighty Possessed from California, USA. One of the real pioneering death metal bands, heavily leaning on the more aggressive end of the thrash metal spectrum. But this second album, Beyond the Gates, has been a glaring omission from my collection, from my catalogue here, and death metal essentials list anyway, for a long time. And that, again, always comes down to one of a few things: availability, and in this case, cost. Because you can pick it up on Amazon and it's going to set you back in excess of £10, so probably closer to 20. But actually, I stumbled upon this version, which includes the Eyes of Horror EP, as well as bonus material there. This was about $8.99 on EMP. A great site that is. I think that this album originally was released in the sort of mid-80s, mid-1980s, about 86. I know that it was a very short period of time after their absolutely seminal debut album, The Mighty Seven Churches. Absolute classic, heavily leaning into the aggressive thrash style that we get with bands like Creator or even Exodus. But what they were doing here was turning it into something a little bit nastier. So this is fast-paced. No, I definitely wouldn't say that Beyond the Gates, although it's a good album, it's not as good as that absolute classic essential debut. But nonetheless, it's actually still a very strong album. I think that what is fair to say is that it's actually the Eyes of Horror material, which is better than the full-length tracks, definitely. But this absolute legendary band released those two albums in the 1980s and then had periods of activity, but pretty much was either on hiatus or just on hold for, well, decades. And then a few years ago, they reformed and they did release another studio album. So there's 3 full-length albums in Possessed's catalogue, but I've only had that most recent album, Revelations, and then the classic Seven Churches. I've only had those 2 in my collection for however long. So I was so relieved to finally find a reasonably priced copy of this rather interesting album, as I say, and including the Eyes of Horror EP as bonus material. As I say, this is not as good as that debut album, no, but I still think it's a pretty strong album. We get quite a lot of fairly short and sharp thrashing death metal tracks. This is not as aggressive as, a few years later where we've got bands like Cannibal Corpse, absolutely, taking things to the very extreme. I would say this is a bit more akin to what we had from The Mighty Death, but certainly thrashier, definitely. We get some cracking tracks in the form of The Heretic is a great one. March to Die is another good one. No Will to Live is a little bit of a longer track, but that is a solid one. The Beasts of the Apocalypse and Seance is great. But really, in my opinion, it's the Eyes of Horror tracks that really, really stand out here. They are solid, they are heavier, definitely more death metal than thrash. We get tracks like Confessions, which is brilliant. My Belief, which is very memorable. Swing of the Axe, which is a real punishing number, some real thrashy crunch in there, and Storm in My Mind is very catchy. So there's some fantastic riffs here through Beyond the Gate and The Eyes of Horror. Some really top-notch, first-rate riffs there, really crunchy, thrashy, some decent leads as well in there. There's certainly not too much to quibble and moan about, that's for sure. So actually, this is a really nice reissue package, courtesy of Century Media Records. Really nice one. As I say, I'm so pleased to finally fill that gap, because I felt like I was doing such a disservice, such a betrayal to one of the real pioneers of death metal. You know, alongside Death and Cannibal Corpse, these guys were absolutely influential, pivotal bands, you know, as well as bands like Obituary, in developing and really forming death metal. So, Beyond the Gates, solid death metal release. Maybe not as good as that debut, but certainly a pretty strong album. So that's Possessed. Up next, it had another niggling gap in my discography. So I am a big fan of Sweden's Necrophobic, a superb band that basically started out as a death metal band, very much in that Scandinavian sound and style. You know, there's those kind of blackened elements, and then over the years they have transitioned more and more into a black metal band, outright at times, or a blackened death metal band. So I've got all of the other albums in their catalogue except the new album, which again is absurdly overpriced at the moment. So I'm going to overlook that. But this little ditty, Mark of the Necrogram, was another glaring omission. Again, because of cost, I haven't purchased this album, even though I'm a big fan of the band, and this came out in 2018. So it's been out for a while now. I just couldn't justify spending nearly £15 on a dual case CD. No chance. But for about $7.99 on EMP, I was happy to finally fill that gap. And that is some fantastic artwork there. Absolutely brilliant. Mark of the Necrogram. It's a really solid album. I would say that this is Necrophobic on fine form. Fine form indeed. No complaints here. Some really memorable black metal here. Mark of the Necrogram, Odium, another brilliant one. The third track, Tsar Bomba, is absolutely brilliant. That is one of the album highlights. A really powerful track. It's got this real kind of intensity to it. It's very memorable. It's very catchy stuff, but it's diabolical. Sacrosanct, another great one, as is Pesta. Requiem for a Dying Sun. Crown of Horns, From the Great Above to the Great Below. Absolutely brilliant. It's start to finish is about 45-46 minutes of just reliable Necrophobic. They've been on such a good form with albums like Womb of Lilithu. Absolutely fantastic. They've been on really good form, and this is a fine continuation of that great form there. Mark of the Necrogram, Necrophobic. If you're not familiar with Necrophobic, then I would absolutely recommend that you get into that. You want to check out some of their absolute classics like The Nocturnal Silence, Dark Side, Third Antichrist. Some really top-notch albums in their catalogue, and I do honestly feel that they are criminally freaking underrated. So, on to another really annoying gap, and this is a surprising one because this is one of my all-time favourite bands, without question, no doubt at all. But again, I would not pay the price that's being asked for just a standard copy of their latest album on Amazon. If you wanted the special edition, which I have actually acquired here, this was going to set you back in excess of £20, which is mental. But finally, EMP filled that gap for me there by making this, and this is entitled Opus Contra Naturam, available for just £10. So, or £9.99. So I've finally been able to fill the gap in my Behemoth discography and actually get the new album. And this was released in 2022, so this has taken a couple of years. But again, I would not pay £22.99 for this particular version, nor am I going to pay £15 for the standard jewel case in slipcase. No chance. But this is a really nice package, I will say. And I think that Behemoth, they really do go all out with the artwork, with the whole package. This is a lovely media book that has the kind of embossed foil print there. It's great. So when I first listened to Opus Contra Naturam, I will admit my initial response, my initial impression was not as favourable as it is with or as it was with and has become with subsequent listens. I would say this album has definitely grown on me with repeated listens. That said, it's definitely not up there with the sheer brilliance of Evangelion, The Satanist, even I Love You at Your Darkest, which I firmly do believe is a fantastic album. I really do hold that one in very high regards. I think they've been on fine form. What they've done is they've made an interesting kind of approach to black metal. They've made it very accessible, shall we say, and there's been, accusations of selling out and whatever, but I don't give a crap about that, to be honest. They still sound fantastic. Yeah, it does sound polished. Yeah, it does sound a little bit grander and a little bit more palatable, but it's Behemoth breaking into the mainstream, and they have done really, really well for themselves. And they're a fine freaking band. Nurgle is an absolute genius. A fantastic, fantastic band. But I would say that, as I mentioned, with subsequent listens, this album's really grown on me. Opus has really grown on me a lot, and I think it is a fantastic album. I think it's just not quite as good as The Satanist, not quite as good as I Loved You at Your Darkest. That said, there's certainly a lot of musical continuity. This album definitely bears the same kind of sound and style that we had on The Satanist and I Loved You at Your Darkest. There's definitely a continuity here, but it sounds brilliant. It sounds very good. We kind of kick off with an intro sort of piece, which again is very dark, very ambient, entitled Post God Nirvana. First track proper is Malaria Vulgata, which is a very good number. It's very Behemoth. It's a black metal number. We've got some blasting drumming going on there, but really things really start to kick off in the third track, The Deathless Sun, which it's just got Nurgle written all over it. It's very catchy, some very good vocal work. It's brilliant. It's just a really good number. Of My Herculean Exile, which is one of the singles, another brilliant number. It's not a colossally heavy track, but it's very catchy. It's very dark, and it really gets you with that darkness in the way that Triptychon album, for example, or a My Dying Bride album would really get you and grip you, because it is just a totally encompassing atmosphere, and it freaking works. Neo Spartacus, excellent, a real highlight. Disinheritance, powerful, heavy stuff, dark and bleak. Off to War, up-tempo, but not as up-tempo as Once Upon a Pale Horse, which is that's a heavy metal number. That's a rocking heavy metal track. It's absolutely brilliant though. Thy Becoming Eternal, absolutely brilliant. And Versus Christus, wonderful. What a dark, sinister, ominous way to close out an album. So all round, it's about 46 minutes again, but it's a very good album. It's Behemoth on excellent form. There's a real continuity there, as I say, but it's just not quite as good as what came before it. That said, is that really surprising? Because The Satanist is absolutely exceptional. I Loved You at Your Darkest is, again, it's maybe I prefer The Satanist, but it's just as good an album. Opus I keep forgetting what it's called. Contra Naturam, absolutely brilliant. Wonderful album. Just took me a while to finally get to that one. So, up next, we've got a number of releases from Norwegian black metal. A little bit too late to be that kind of initial second wave black metal bands, but certainly have become very pivotal, and they have become one of the underground kings of modern black metal. And I'm talking about Suda, or Tsjuder. I believe it's a silent T. So we've got a couple of releases here. We'll start sort of chronologically. I came across these guys years ago, and I think that, again, it was a classic case of price is too high, accessibility is a little bit poor. You know, you could get an import or whatever, but it was going to cost you quite a bit of money. And then, of course, there's so much to listen to in life. There's so many things to listen to. New albums from your favourites, and also discovering other bands. It took me a long time to actually commit and get these albums, or try and fill in a few pieces of the puzzle. So this I stumbled upon on eBay, I believe. This is a US import from Seasons of Mist Records that combines the first two albums from Suda. So this is in a nice little slipcase here. So we've got the debut album, Kill for Satan, and then we have the follow-up album, Demonic Possession. So what I really like about this little budget price is that you get a nice little slipcase there with some interesting art and the track list, but then you actually get the standalone pieces as well. So it's not like, you know, you've just got both albums stuffed into one double jewel case or anything like that. It's a really nice little package. So this album, Kill for Satan, was released in 2000, I believe. It's been around for a while. I'm just noticing on the back there it says anti-human, anti-life, true Norwegian black metal. Yeah, just from the artwork and from statements like that, you can definitely tell where they're coming from. There's no hiding that. But it's a solid album. It certainly reminds me very much of Mysticum, which, again, considering it's a Norwegian black metal band, and there's that kind of real industrial drum machine kind of sound there, it's hardly surprising. But it's a good take on second wave black metal. It's diabolical, it's heavy. We get some really great tracks, such as the opening number, The Demon Gate into Necromancy, absolutely brilliant. Lord of Terror, Raping Christianity, Unleashed, interesting kind of interlude piece. And then we get the title track, Kill for Satan. To be honest, it's just a really solid, enjoyable black metal album. It does definitely have that Norwegian black metal kind of vibe, but I would definitely say if you like your early second wave stuff, that we would get with the first three. No, not the first three. With the second through fourth album from the legendary Dark Throne. Of course, you know, Under a Funeral Moon, A Blaze in the Northern Sky, and Transylvanian Hunger. If you like that little block of, well, arguably one of the most important bands in the second wave of black metal, if you like your mayhem as well, and you like Mysticum, most importantly, then you're certainly going to dig this. It's a short and sweet album, not overly complicated, not overly taxing. It's just really decent stuff. The second album then, which was released in 2002, Demonic Possession, there's a little bit more going on here. This is a notable progression. There's some interesting tracks here, much longer pieces as well. But it's a notable step up. Whereas we had like almost a caustic, abrasive black metal with an industrial flair, this is much more second wave black metal. It's diabolical, it's evil, it's heretical. There's blast beats, there's shrieks, there's that absolutely chilling guitar tone, of course. It's just a solid album. I would personally say that I prefer Demonic Possession just a little bit, I think there's definitely a notable step forward there. But it's a great, great album. Definitely. As I say, if you like your Mayhem and Mysticum, then you're definitely going to dig Suda and Demonic Possession and Kill for Satan. And then we fast forward a few years up to 2011, and then we get Legion Helveta, which is the best of these three albums, in my opinion. It's a great album. It's very progressed, evil, but confident second wave black metal. So we've got 7 tracks in total. No, 8 tracks in total here. But it's a solid effort. All the tracks flow pretty seamlessly, one into the next. There's a real continuity in sound and style. There's no sort of, random wild cards thrown in there. It's just solid black metal. Definitely, if you love your Mayhem, if you like your Dark Funeral, then you're definitely gonna enjoy Suda and Legion Helveta, Demonic Possession, and Kill for Satan as well. Solid black metal. I have actually ordered a copy of the box set version of their latest album as well, which the name escapes me already. And I know there's a couple of other gaps I need to fill in, but slowly working my way through it, as I've been very heavily into my black metal over the last couple of years. So that's Tsjuder. Finally bridged the gap there and purchased some Tsjuder. So we've talked death metal through black metal. Now we're going something completely different. And I have absolutely no shame in admitting that I do like my heavy metal and power metal quite a lot. And one of the really, really brilliant standout bands in the kind of power metal or grand operatic metal scene is the brilliant Avantasia, masterminded by Tobias Sammet, frontman, vocalist of the great Edguy, also a first-rate and criminally underrated heavy metal, power metal band. Thirsty freaking work. Absolutely brilliant band. Basically a super group or an opera, as Tobias has tagged it. Guest vocalists, some consistent characters, Jorn, Michael Kiske, Bob Catley, who have been turning up time and time again. But one of the gaps in my Avantasia discography has been album number 7, Ghostlights, for quite a long time. This was released in 2016, and this particular version is the media book with bonus disc version. Special edition. It's got a bonus track as well. The bonus material, I haven't actually listened to this live album, but it's live, and I believe it was live at Wacken. I'm gonna double check. Actually, yeah. So some tracks 1 to 9 was Wacken Festival 2014. Then we got Masters of Rock in Czech Republic 2013, and also another track from Wacken, but that was 2008. So an interesting little live set there. As I say, I haven't listened to that, but what I have checked out is the core album, which is a long album. It's over an hour long. It says here 74 minutes 48 seconds, and I believe that includes the bonus track as well. It's a long commitment, but it is absolutely fantastic. It is epic. It sounds stunning. It's really well produced. There's a lot of diversity and a lot of different sort of dynamic elements in there. But what I love Tobias's vocals. I think he's a fantastic vocalist. He has such a unique voice. There's no one else that I can think who sounds like Tobias. So you've got this absolute powerhouse fronting the band, and then you've got some seriously notable names. You've got Jorn Landi in there. You've got Ronnie Atkins, Dee Schneider, Jeff Tate, Michael Kiske. You've got Sharon Den Adel, Marco Haitala, and Bob Catley. Absolutely fantastic. A real supergroup. We kick off with Mystery of a Blood Red Rose, which is sort of rousing power metal. Then we've got the epic and heavy, and there's a real darkness to this album. This is some dark metal. Let the Storm Descend Upon You, which is 12 minutes. It's a vocal war. They're just vying for total power there. It's absolutely brilliant. That's a real standout. Seduction of Decay is brilliant, as is Ghostlights. Then we've got the very odd Draconian Love, which has a real goth vibe to it. Masters of the Pendulum is fantastic. I believe that's the one with Marco. We've got Lucifer, Unchain the Lights, A Restless Heart and Obsidian Skies with the wonderful Bob Catley there. It's just a brilliant album. If you like heavy freaking metal and power metal with some exceptional vocals, like really up there stuff, and you're not familiar with Avantasia, then you seriously need to correct that. What I also have, courtesy of EMP, again, I've been omitting or overlooking this one for a while because of the cost, but $9.99 on EMP, Avantasia's most recent album from 2022. This is A Paranormal Evening with the Moonflower Society. Album number 9. And what I will say is it is absolutely freaking brilliant. Again, we've got a host of amazing guest vocalists here. We've got Ronnie Atkins, Bob Catley again, but we've also got Floor Jansen, the wonderful Floor Jansen of Nightwish fame. We've also got Michael Kiske, Jeff Tate comes back. We've got Eric Martin, and rather brilliantly, we've got the mighty Ralph Sheepers of Primal Fear, delivering an absolute freaking belter in the form of, I believe it's The Wicked Rule the Night. Absolutely freaking up there. Absolutely brilliant. This album is a much shorter album. It's less than an hour long, which for Avantasia is pretty short, but it really packs a freaking punch. This is glorious. If you like Nightwish, if you like Epica, Halloween, then you are going to dig Avantasia. And I don't care what anyone says. You know, hey, it's my channel, my opinion, and we're all entitled to our own opinions. But I absolutely love Avantasia. I love the grandiose, epic sound and style of it. I can listen to the nastiest, filthiest death metal, but then I like to come back and, you know, listen to some really touching, emotive, epic operatic metal as well. Absolutely love it. 2 stunning albums from Avantasia. Can't fault them at all. Absolutely not. Both fantastic albums there from a fantastic band. I think Tobias Sammet is an absolute genius. Not only is he an amazing vocalist, but his songwriting is obviously superb and, yeah, brilliant. Absolute legend. So that's some of my latest additions. There are a few more that are in the process, but hey ho. These are some of the real standouts from my recent purchasing. So we've got Possessed, just to recap, Possessed, second album, sophomore album, Beyond the Gates, US death metal legends, freaking legends. Then we've got Swedish death metal, black metalers, whatever, the mighty Necrophobic with Mark of the Necrogram, wonderful album. Polish black metal gods, Behemoth, the mighty Behemoth with Opus Contra Nocturum. Then we have Suda from Norway, Norwegian black metal assault. We have demonic possession there and Kill for Satan in the form of this rather hard to come by, actually. A little slipcase double pack here. Very nice day. And Legion Helveta as well, thrown in for good measure. And lastly, of course, we had Avantasia with Ghostlights from 2016 and A Paranormal Evening with the Moonflower Society from 2022. So, my friends, what are your thoughts and opinions on these albums? What are your thoughts and opinions on these bands? If you've never heard of some of these particular releases, I strongly suggest that you check them out because you will not be disappointed. But thank you very, very much for watching, my friends. Please do feel free to like, subscribe, share. I really do appreciate the support. Really do. It goes a long way, my friends, so thank you. Do check back soon for more reviews and recommendations of all the good heavy things. But until next time, my friends, take care of yourselves and stay frickin' heavy.